Canada, so I'll ask the clerk to,
Someone's not
someone's not muted. It's probably mine, yeah. Okay, I think no, somebody else, maybe down there. She, yeah. Okay, then no more feedback. We're good. We're good. We wouldn't want feedback during O Canada. So I'll ask everybody to rise and we'll have the clerk play our national anthem. Thank you. Number 3 on the agenda is any declaration of interest or general nature thereof. Does anybody have an interest to declare at this time? Seeing no interest, I'm just double checking. So I have everybody in this is going to take me a little bit to get used to because I'm used to looking at the, rather than looking up and looking at everybody around the table. It is great to have everybody here. I won't have to look at the computer to see whether somebody's voted or not. I'll have to actually look up. So it'll be retraining all over. So the next on the consent agenda is the adoption and or receipt of minutes. And the motion is made by Councillor Maybe and seconded by Councillor Fody that the March 8th, 2021 Municipal and Planning Act public meeting minutes and council meeting minutes, May 10th, 2021 public and council meeting minutes, June 7th, public committee of the whole meeting minutes be adopted as circulated, and that the April 21st, 2021 economic development meeting minutes and April 27th, 2021 committee of adjustment meeting minutes be received and filed. Any discussion on these minutes as they've been presented? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Excuse me. Next on the agenda is staff reports. So the motion is put forward by Councillor Maybe and seconded by Councillor Fody that the council approve the staff reports as recommended at the June 7th, 2021 committee of the whole meeting. So gentlemen, you have the staff reports. So it was the administration report, a couple of administration reports, finance and planning. Any further discussion on any of those reports? Councillor Gorell, go ahead. You want to put your microphone on?
Just a clarification, we will be looking at bylaws later, and I just wonder, would it be appropriate to be discussing, for instance, the first item of disposal of surplus assets? Would we discuss that now, or would we be discussing that perhaps during the bylaw?
Usually it's just to pass the bylaw, and it's more of a straight function. If you want to have discussion, I believe it would
I
have to
just
be.
procedurally, I wasn't sure which was more appropriate. to be
Yep,
honest
if
with you.
if there could be any changes or amendments, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, now is the time to discuss it.
Okay, then just really for clarification, with the, I'll have to bring up the bylaw. I thought it was well written, just a couple of small points. Okay. First of all, number one, we've determined that $50,000 is a threshold. Is that something, when I read through the bylaw, I was satisfied, I guess, that Treasury staff members have to bring to the Treasury the idea, and then the value would be placed on something. So is 50,000 an appropriate threshold, or is it too high? And that I gather, if I could get an opinion from perhaps the CAO on the disposition of goods, I think I was satisfied that the treasurer had mentioned to me at our last meeting that in order that the asset management plan wasn't unduly affected by and the budgeting process was smooth and functioning fluently, that all of the dispositions needed to go to and be reported to the Treasury. I would have a question. Let's say that we're going to a budget process, and let's say that halfway through that budget process, that someone decides that there's a 50,000 plus item that's going to be disposed of. That would, in my mind, still affect pretty dramatically some budgeting. So am I correct in assuming then that the treasurer would be, and the CAO would be responsible to bring forward any of these potential hiccups? And lastly, when it said sort of unvalued, what's the correct word here? When something didn't have much value, applicable ways, the chief administration officer may authorize the disposal of the asset directly through the recycling process, applicable waste stream, or transfer to a township employee. And I wasn't sure, should that be township or someone in the public? I don't understand why we would put township employee. People may have been thinking of phones or something. I have no idea why we would want to promote a township employee in that process. So thank you very much. Those are my items. Thank you.
CAO Donahue, would you like to answer those questions? We can't hear you, CAO. We still can't hear you. I think this happened the last time he was in his office. No, we can't hear you. Okay. So I think the CAO is going to take a stroll down the hallway and come see us in Chancel Chambers, and he can speak at the podium.
always on.
Yeah, sorry about that. That works all day on umpteen Zoom calls. And for some reason, it's got my number. Thank you, Worship, and through you, Councilor Corral. The $50,000 threshold is a number that was just set by me while I was drafting the disposal policy. I thought it coordinated or aligned with the public procurement policy that we have at the 50,000 threshold going to council for decisions. But there's no magic in that number. If council would feel more comfortable with something lower, that's fine with us. But that was just a number we landed upon, and I thought it was useful at that time. We want to be coming to council for approvals on disposal of things, and this is really when you're talking about something that has a fair market value of $50,000, probably a very substantial asset, and that's something that I think council would be interested in knowing about, smaller things, but totally open to you on that one. With respect to aligning the disposal of assets and into the asset management program, the treasurer is a key player under the disposal policy, and so we have involvement pretty much start to finish on this. So she would be tasked with ensuring that the asset management plan, the data on the asset management policy or program would be kept up to date. Budgeting, that's a good one. I think if it was something substantial and we would be impacting the budget, I would imagine as part of the approval process that we would need to get from council, we would come back and also discuss the impact on the budget as well at that time. I think that was your points.
Just a minor point about disposal of an asset that really had no value.
Right. Okay. The balance that I was trying to get under the draft is to not make it unduly, make sure that it's open and transparent, but also not make it unduly onerous to actually dispose of things, particularly of nominal value. So we're talking about things that really, if they're not saleable, they're going to go to the dump. And sometimes there are people who, it's around the office, if it's an old chair or something like that, and they may have a use for it. And I guess the past practice has been also that, you know, if somebody wants it and it's zero value, okay, fine, take it, rather than going through a process of trying to offer it to the public or to a charity or to something. So that was the logic behind that one.
I can see the logic is that there has been a process before that has determined the value of this product or something is very, very low. And so we can rest assured that that's the checks and balances in that process, I guess. Thank you.
Quite correct. And I'm keep in mind that I'm the one who has to approve that. And so I don't want to see something that has value just go without due process and follow through the policy. Also keep in mind that we will report regularly under the policy to council of the disposal of all assets. So if there is anything, you'll see what the asset was, what we valued it at, and what happened to it. And if you see anything that has any sort of value going to an employee, I'm going to be accountable for it.
Thank you very much. That very much clarifies that. Thank you, sir.
Any further questions in regards to that item or any other item under staff reports? Councillor Jameson.
Just to make sure we all understand under SR 7521, the planning report, expecting the road closure request, that has been deferred. And it just that I had a few emails.
Yes, it's been deferred. My understanding, Ms. Venditti, did you want to speak to that? Just to be uber clear, I don't want to speak for you.
Thank you, through your worship. The application is deferred. I've been working with the applicant to advance getting additional information, and they are in the process of preparing that. At this point, given the nature of the information that needs to be prepared, which includes a survey, and some of the challenges with obtaining the services of surveyors right now, I don't know the timing for bringing it back, but we'll bring it back as soon as we have the right information.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That satisfies
That's-
Councillor Jameson.
Thank you very much.
Any further comments or questions in regards to the staff reports? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Yeah, I can hear somebody. Is it you? Ah, weird. It's fine. It's fine. It's not bothering me. So as long as it's not bothering you and not giving you feedback. Okay, so next on the docket is the information items. So there's a number of information items there. There's a motion on the floor moved by Councillor Foti, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that the information items are received and filed. Any discussion on any of the information items that have been presented? Councillor Jameson?
Should I go at one at a time, or how do you want me to handle this? Your worship?
Well, so I guess really what it comes down to, is there anything that you want to pull to have supported?
No, I just want to raise as a matter of information for us to consider. Is that
Allow that, go ahead.
allowed? There are three items, but the two that are connected is reviewing the Thousand Islands Area Residents Association newsletter, as well as looking at the regulatory proposal consultation guide with respect to the conservation authorities. I just think I'm just saying, Your Worship, that we should probably be mindful of some of the implications with respect to some of these changes that are coming. It strikes me that we're looking at some pretty complicated budget discussions when the time comes with respect to the Conservation Authority, given that mandatory is one thing and non-mandatory, it appears, and I'm talking about the Conservation Act changes, that it appears that what will happen is that it's almost like each individual municipality will then be discussing within itself what it wants to fund from the Conservation Authority with respect to non-mandatory. And I may be wrong on that, because I found the consultation guide a little convoluted, but I just think we should be aware that we're facing quite a dramatic change in how we're going to have to look at this at a budget time. That's my reading. And Tiara raises some pretty thorny issues with respect to what they see as being some challenges with some of the overall environmental issues. So I just draw that to our attention, so as we move into our budget process, we're prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Any Councillor Foti and then Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. Since our committee of the whole meeting last week, I've had a handful of phone calls, a few emails, and inquiries about, there were, quite frankly, residents are asking what, if anything, we are doing with regards to the gypsy moth invasion in the township. It's not obviously just our township, but I quite frankly responded to most of them by saying I would bring it up with the mayor, not knowing, has anything been mentioned at the county level?
There has been no discussion about any program at this point by county that I'm aware of. Anyways, there's nothing been at the county table. I believe that an ancillary discussion after committee of the whole the other day, there was a number of mayors talking about some of the challenges they're facing in their own municipalities. And I had overheard it, and we've received a few email concerns that we should be doing something about that. But as far as I know, I don't know if the municipality has ever undertaken something like that, unless it was a spot thing on one of our properties specifically. But this is a massive problem right now, and it's on private property as much as it's on. And we had the ancillary conversation we had earlier, when you're talking about spraying for these sorts of things, it's sort of, there's no bullseye necessarily to fix it. I don't have any answers, I guess is probably the bottom line, but Councillor Jameson, you have something to add?
Yeah,
to that?
I do. To your point, to support your point, your worship, had the opportunity to attend a session presented by the Ontario Woodlot Association, 2 hours gripping on the Gypsy Moth invasion. But quite clearly, this is not something that individual municipalities are going to be able to tackle. So, and they're also anticipating that the challenge next year is going to be consistent with what we're seeing right now. So I think to Councillor Foti raising this, I think it may be worth our while to address this at a higher level. To the extent that the map shows it's all through Eastern Ontario, is there a mechanism that we can address this with some communication to the province to assist us in this? Because yes, there's the environmental challenge, but it's also going to affect business, it affects farms, it affects woodlots, it affects tourism. I mean, it's just massive. And if it isn't anything like it is this year, it could be really devastating next year. So I hate, the bearer of bad news, but very scientific minds were on that call. And I would encourage us to try to move this up the chain, see if we can get some response. Thank you.
So just to bookend what he's just said, I would be willing to take this back to County Council, to specifically our resident specialist, Jeff McVeigh, who's in charge of Limerick Forest. He would have the knowledge or the contacts or be able to bring forward something of meaning to figure out who else is doing anything in the area, or what the broader strategy is for the Eastern Ontario part of the province that is having this devastation. So I can commit to sending that off for further consideration at county. Go ahead, Councillor Foti.
Just a further comment, Your Worship. We can only imagine, our township isn't unique this way, but you can only imagine some of our parks in our township, what they would look like with defoliage this time of year. And I actually took the time on a piece of property just on Sunday, yesterday, I guess it was, to look at a tree. It was a butternut tree, approximately 30 feet in height, 12 inches in diameter, not a leaf left on it. Yet these little critters were by the thousands still there, still eating. And that was one tree. They just completely stripped it. And my chain of thought when I was watching these little critters, they're well fed. That means they're quite healthy to carry on and keep doing this. And if we don't try and be proactive, as Mark had said, the Ontario Woodlot Association, and maybe they should spearhead it through the province. This is a much bigger battle than we, the township, want to take on. But if you could take that to the county and see if they can move it on up the chain, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, at the very least, we would probably have comrades in arms to go up that chain with, because I know we're one of 10 and 3 separated municipalities who've been hit with it as well. So we can probably have a bigger stick if we go together. So well, duly noted. Councillor Maybe.
Thank you. Worshiping through you. First item would be the radon test report. And is there going to be a map generated for our jurisdiction to kind of indicate where our highlighted area of the radon gas is, which would be helpful for our information purposes, just so that we kind of have a good ballpark on that. And then the second one that I was wondering is with the CRCA, the furnace fuel storage inspection, and what action can we take actually on that, or what is our legality on that particular one? Thank you.
Madam Planner, do you want to speak to the first question?
Certainly. Through you, with respect to the radon report, we won't get a map. That's the community report. So the individuals that did the testing will have their own individual report for their property, but what we've received is an aggregate report of all of the information. And part of the reason for that is that 2 properties side by side could have very different radon results. So the map would only be representative of the individual properties. So we won't be getting a map, but based on the results of that, we are starting to advise people in terms of, and we have been since we started the study, what mitigation they could put into their construction to help either put in measures so that radon's not a problem from the beginning of construction, or how they could fit their houses so that if they do a test, once it's occupied and it becomes a problem, then it's much easier to put in the mitigation measures if necessary.
Thank you. And as regards to CRCA, that information item you're talking about, sorry, lost my place. Environmental no. Oh, the risk management. I apologize. So would you like to address that?
Thank you, Worship, and through you. Initially, the approach is to gain compliance, but there are regulatory things they could bring to bear, and I would defer the details of that to Mr. Holliday if he would answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. So with the source water protection, we are required to do investigations. We have to have risk management plans for all of these properties where they have oil heating or propane heating for within our source water protection zone. So anything in Lansdowne within the proximity of the wellheads, we have to do those investigations. So our plan is to pair the meter replacements with the source water protection investigations. And actually that process is starting this week. So the meter replacements are starting on Wednesday, and both Melrose and Aqua have been in conversations to coordinate those investigations at the same time.
And Councillor Gorell, you had a question?
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. If we're just moving down the list of information items, I'd just like to bring up the EORN gig project letter. First of all, I'd like to say that it's a pleasure to see that EORN has signed on to a gigabyte rather than the CRTC original 5010 business. So we're moving correctly into the 21st century. And there's a lot to be said in their brief report. And I did sit in on a Zoom call that dealt with two items. One of them was and it was the minor portion of the Zoom call, but it was the county receiving a report from EORN, and it was rather a minority portion of it. But it dealt with, very briefly, with the gig project. The major project that they were talking about was a report from executives from Rogers Telco. And it was a fulsome report on supplying mobile cellular telephone service through 99% of Eastern Ontario. So that's, I've forgotten the boundaries of EWOC. It was a good report, 600 towers along all the major routes. But what was interesting during that presentation, if you don't mind me taking up a little time here, the fact is there's still a tremendous amount of confusion between many people, the county, et cetera, between a mobile cellular plan and broadband, okay? And it was evident to me, and I could even almost quote the Rogers executive himself said, I want to make it perfectly clear that the Rogers program that we are talking about today has nothing to do with the provision of your broadband, ... And I mean, he couldn't have been more clear. But it's still, you walk away from that thinking the confusion is enormous amongst people. So here we are with a letter, and it's a good letter, generally speaking. But what EORN didn't present, nor was it really the forum, I don't think, for it, they didn't really present any meat and potatoes. It was just, really, we hope that the government will respectively receive our report. And the words are here. You know, 1 gig is a far cry from 5010. So that's a big step up for them, right? But later in the letter here, it makes reference to Eastern Ontario Regional Broadband Network. Now, that's something that I myself haven't read anything about. So my question would be, I would love to make full support of this letter, but I wonder if we couldn't also ask EORN, is much of this, if any of this, public information at this time. It may not be. There might be a lot of data in there that they don't want out there. There may be. So on one hand, it was a good news story. On the other hand, I'd be very curious to know what it is they're doing. I just want to finish up by saying they said they were going to hook up 550,000 homes, representing 95% of the homes in Eastern Ontario. I don't want this township one more time to represent the 5%. So if we're going to support this letter, I would also like it, and there are a lot of signatures on this letter if you went through it, hundreds. It wouldn't hurt my feelings at all if we said Township of Leeds and 1,000 Islands would like to not be represented as the 5%. We'd like to be part of that 95%, because until we see something on paper, we are once again going to be at the mercy of something that's supposed to be 1.6 billion. So anyway, enough said. I think I've made my point. I hope I have that. I would like this township to say, in addition, we would like to be carefully looked at and considered in your lovely proposals. Thank you very much.
So in response to Councillor Gorell's point, and then I'll recognize Deputy Mayor Lackey, when I was requested to send a letter or to join the support of the EORN project, I'll be honest, I struggled with doing that because not because I don't think that their aspirations are true and in good faith, but we have been waiting for 10 years on this project. We made a commitment early on in this council term to strike our own path, and which we have done. And I think we've consistently moved along that path, and thankful to staff and to the working group that helped us along with that. Having said that, when I discussed this letter with the CAO and some other, because I was wrestling with it, but the overall, because we were asked to provide a letter in support of EORN from council at one point, and again struggled with that. But really what it's about is we support the expansion of broadband services throughout our municipality. That's all that says generally. I realize that it can be interpreted in many different ways, but to me, the real rubber that's meeting the road here is what we've done here already, because we aren't sitting around and waiting for another project to come through to service our people. Now, if the gig, sorry, not the gig project, what's the name of the other one? I'm drawing a blank now. So, no, I know the other one for the mobile cellular. So yeah, but there's another acronym name for it, but that's already in movement. We've already approved a couple of those towers here in this municipality to service that particular, and I am fully supportive of that. And I'm happy. I'm speaking on behalf of myself right at the second, but on behalf of this council, I think that everybody has made it abundantly clear that everybody still is committed to seeing our own project through this, but that EORN is continuing to move along, whether we support it or don't, one way or the other. But if the council feels strongly that we write something different, I will take direction from council. That's not my call personally. So that would be probably a notice of motion or something more at the next committee of the whole, if you wanted to do something more strategic, which is fine. Deputy Mayor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship. What's the feedback coming back from our broadband committee?
At this point, the tender for the business plan has been closed and the staff are reviewing that as we speak. Well, maybe not as we speak during the meeting, but yeah, Marnie's not looking down at this point. So, so I believe there will be a special meeting scheduled to go through the tender document process and to, I think, trying to get the glare off my face. Thank you. The sun is setting in the perfect spot. But that we will be receiving, I believe that will be an in-camera discussion, because there are trade secrets and proprietary information for those particular vendors that have made their business plan case. And then once we get through that process. And that might be a two-pronged process, depending on how Director of Planning and the CAO come to grips with how we're going to move that forward. And then we will be able to make a decision. And then that decision, any commitment of funds will be made at this council table in open session at that point in time. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, the letter or the motion here from Rideau Lakes Township regarding funding for cemeteries. Could we have our CAO or Operations Director weigh in on this? Is this quite frankly, a crippling amount to our township? I doubt we're unique or alone in this situation. I didn't make my own decision whether I supported this or not, but I can understand the concept.
Well, at this point, it's just information items to be received and filed. We haven't sent a letter of our own in support, but I can recognize either the Director of Operations or Community and Business Services, whoever's been handling the cemeteries portfolio, or even the CAO. Would you like to speak? I'll let the CAO speak to it.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. The Rideau Lakes resolution is seeking some sort of consistent funding from the province to help with the care and maintenance for cemeteries, recognizing the importance that cemeteries play to the communities as a place for marking the settlers, the people of the township. It's a place where families go, and often as years pass and the people involved looking after the cemeteries, the cemetery boards, as they age and move on to other things, these cemeteries are still there, and they are certainly something that deserve the maintenance and respect of the township, of all townships. And so it's a hard thing to get your head around. I think there are something like 41 cemeteries, and we have that number, 41 or 31 cemeteries within our township. Not all of them active, some have been abandoned, and it falls upon, under the Cemeteries Act, once that happens, it falls upon the township for the care and maintenance. For us to see that these cemeteries are properly and respectfully maintained and cared for, it would take a significant amount of resources and time for us to do. I think what Rideau Lakes is asking the provincial government is something that many townships are struggling with as well. And so I support Rideau Lakes. When I saw that information item come through, I thought, yeah, that's one that needs to come to council for just so you know what's out there. Those are my thoughts at this point.
Councillor Fody, any follow-up?
Well, with a second opinion similar to my own, then I will make a motion that we support Rideau Lakes in their endeavor.
Okay, so you're looking to pull that report,
Please.
or pull the letter, I should say, for
Right.
support, and I believe she's writing up the, Councillor Gorell, I'll let you go before we go on to the motion.
I was just going to bring up the township Huron and Ross support fire departments. Is that appropriate at this time?
If you want to pull that to,
Yes,
To-
in support of, yes.
can you add that, to have that pulled with the same one?
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else anybody wants to pull, so we can go ahead?
I don't want to pull it. I just want to comment on the Killenbeck Lane
Oh, yes.
submission. I not pull it, but I just want to comment on it if I may, but
Go ahead.
oh.
While
well,
she's writing it up.
So I don't forget, I just want to commend Councillor Olkey for taking on the risk management plan and submitting the report. You get all the fun stuff to do there, Gord. So thank you for that. The Killenbeck Lane submission seems to have crossed dates with the June 2nd letter that our CAO sent to the organization, the Lane organization, respecting where we are at with looking at short-term rentals. And I found, I know it's been distributed to council. I'm not sure if it's public, the letter from the CAO. But I just want to say that I originally brought in the motion to ask the planning department to look at the issue of short-term rentals, and with the support of council, we moved ahead on that. But in terms of the idea that there's some sort of lateness in delivering on our efforts here. I think just want to clear the record that at this stage, it's moving along. It's been made very clear in the CAO's letter that it was going to be a many-month process, and it is turning out to be, given all the things we're learning as we go. So the message here really is we need to be patient so we can do it right. And anything we knee-jerk our way into will obviously be very expensive because of the pushback we'll get. So we need to make sure this is a solution that we go to the public with to see if they're going to support it. It has to follow the process, and it can't be based on a perception of imposing a bylaw for which we do not have the strength at this moment to apply without pushback. So I just wanted to make that clear, and I appreciate the CAO's letter, and I appreciate the Killenbeck Lane point of view, but I think at some point the conflict, if you want to call it that, will resolve itself and we'll all be on the same page moving down the road. That's my point.
Thank you, Councillor Jameson. I'll just add to that I appreciate the frustration that the Killenbeck Lane residents are facing and are continually making us aware of. But I think the biggest thing that I'd like to underscore from the correspondence of the CAO to all of us and to that Killenbeck Lake Lane Association is that this is not a issue for a property. There are hundreds of these properties, whether they're rented through Airbnb or they've just been family cottages that have been rented out to friends and family over the years. And there are crosshairs that get crossed seriously if we don't take a very methodical position on this to enforce or to not enforce. And there's been no decision made, but it would be premature and unfair to enforce on one and not all if we made that decision, if we were to make that decision now. And it's early days because of the research that continues to go on within the planning department. And like you say, the consultation that we would need to go through with the community, because this isn't just affecting the people from a negative point of view. There are positives to this as well. We have to weigh both sides of this argument. And I'm not for or against because I don't have the report in front of me. And when the report is made, and I know that it'll be fair, it'll be fulsome, and we'll be able to make a good educated decision at that time when it comes forward. So I'll bring this. So the old one. Okay. So the motion is currently on the floor. So I will ask for a mover and a second. I'll read these first. First one first. Okay, I'll read this and then I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. That the information items be received and filed with the exception of the request for resolution support received from Rideau Lakes regarding cemeteries, and that the request for resolution support received from the Township of Huron-Kinloss regarding support for fire departments. Motion moved by Councillor Olkey. And a seconder, Deputy Mayor Lackey. Okay. So any discussion on the support for the cemeteries, Rideau Lake? Oh, sorry. Oh, this, I apologize. Okay. All those in favor of the motion at hand, please signify. Thank you. All those opposed, and it's carried. Next motion, I'll read and ask for a mover and a seconder that the request for resolution support received from the Township of Rideau Lakes regarding cemeteries hereby be endorsed, and further that the resolution be forwarded to the bereavement authority of the Association of the Minister of Government and Consumer Affairs and the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, Roma, and MPP Steve Clark. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Fody and Councillor Olkey. Any discussion on the motion?
Just
go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
Sorry, just one point. When I read this letter, I started to dig around a little bit, and along with the need to obviously submit this letter, I hope in the long stretch we can look at cemeteries along with our parks, along with our heritage, along with our tourism strategy, and try to get this in the same envelope. There are a lot of initiatives being pursued in other environments where not to take anything away from the quiet and sacred nature of cemeteries, but there is, I'll say, a market for people that really want to visit historical cemeteries. And we should think of that in terms of our own process as we look down the road for opportunities to attract people to our township. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed? And we're carried. And then the next motion, it would be moved by Councillor Fody and seconded by Councillor Jameson, that the request for resolution support received from the Township of Huron-Kinloss regarding fire department support be hereby be endorsed, and that the copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, Honorable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the Honorable Laurie Scott, Minister of Infrastructure, the Ontario Fire Marshal, John Pegg, and AMO. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, through your worship. In the support letter, the first, it says that the federal and provincial government includes apparatus, training, equipment, structures for fire departments as eligible categories to any further infrastructure program. I think that's pretty critical and speaks right to this township if we're requiring Sealy's Bay as infrastructure and so on. So I'm not aware of just how the infrastructure program does influence fire halls and equipment, but it strikes me that that is a very significant ask. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion on the motion that has been presented?
Oh, no, not it.
Okay, that's fine. You can change your mind. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and the motion is carried. Okay, next would be unfinished business. So is there any unfinished business that you would like to address here at the council table tonight? Go ahead, Councillor Maybe, and then Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know last week we talked about the railway crossing and that the one here in Lansdowne is very nicely done, very smooth. But I remember, and correct me if I don't remember, that it was told to us that there's going to be 3 crossings actually worked on, and not just this one out of
County
the
Road
5 we
5.
had. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I shouldn't.
Yeah.
I'll let you finish.
So I was just wondering which the other ones were, if we did know. Thank you.
So I'll answer that because these are county roads. So that was County Road 5 that's being done, I believe, this week. So that's in front of Young, and the other one, why is it escaping me right now? There's another crossing, but it's not in our municipality. So the only county crossing that was being dealt with this year in our municipality was County Road 3. Having said that, when I was chairing committee of the whole at county this past week, they were about to take off basically it's the CAO action list at county. They were going to, Mayor Saya was like, well, that can be removed from the action list. I'm like, oh, no, sir, it's not being removed. And he kind of looked at me and I said, we still have County Road 34 that is in desperate need of repair. And so no, it stays on there. And he kind of looked defeated at the time, but I was like, I'm not giving in on this one. I guess the next conversation we need to have with our own director of operations in regards to the crossings that are within our municipality on township roads. I know our previous director of operations had been trying to lobby CN to make those repairs, because it is partially our cost because we have to do the pieces between the tracks. But it's really about the partnership that we require from CN, and CN has some pretty direct responsibilities from Transport Canada. And I know our former director was in touch with them, but now that we have our new director of operations, my hope is that when we go through the next budgeting cycle, that we'll have more definitive answers from CN about the next steps on the crossings that need to be dealt with, because Town Line is terrible. Cliff's bad, Kai's Road's bad. they're all in really bad shape. So yes, Lansdowne was a win, but we can't get off the soapbox at this point. So absolutely. So thank you for that reminder, and Director Holliday, maybe we can put that on the reminder list to have a more fulsome discussion with CN prior to the next budgeting process to ensure that we have it nailed down or at least committed from them. Councillor Fody?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, perhaps to the Director of Operations. What's our current update with regards to the septic system at Sealy's Bay Fire Hall?
Go ahead, Director.
Through you, Your Worship. The plan was for Nash to break ground this week, and it should be completed within the next 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you very much.
That answers that question succinctly. Any further unfinished business that you would like to address here at the table tonight? Seeing none, I'll move forward with the action items. So the motion reads, moved by Councillor Jameson, seconded by Councillor Fody, that the council approve the amendment to remove the holding symbol H from lands zoned rural residential. Wait here. Is that action items? That's not the right one. It's the one, it's this one, the community of businesses and services. The council adopt the community safety plan. Sorry, we were just out of order. I knew that this thing did not match to. Sorry, I apologize. Moved by Councillor Olkey, seconded by Councillor Gorell, that council adopt the community safety and well-being plan for the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville and the town of Prescott as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Okay. Next one is moved by Councillor Gorell and seconded by Councillor Olkey, that the council approve funding for the refurbishment of the public boat ramp in Rockport up to $125,000 from the Capital Infrastructure Reserve Fund. Director, did you want to speak to this, or did you want me just to field questions from council?
Through you, Your Worship, I think it's pretty straightforward. The boat launch was included in the 2018 budget for design. That was completed in 2019, all of the permits as well. And then due to COVID, that project was pulled from the capital budget. It's still in as poor of shape as it was in the beginning, if not worse. And we're just looking to get that put back on the books and completed this year so that we can get it behind us while it's still quiet and before the season picks up again next year.
Thank you. Any discussion on this motion? Councillor Gorell? Sorry, and then Councillor Gorell, and then Councillor Maybe, and then Deputy Mayor Lackey.
Okay, thank you, through Your Worship. I'm thrilled. It's a well-written report. Thank you to the management team there in ops. I appreciate it. I would like to draw attention to what was mentioned, the environmental species at risk and so on. That expires December 31st of this year, and that's months of delay, I'm sure, if we didn't move forward. We are exceptional low water this year in the St. Lawrence River. Even the CRCA and so on have issued low water warnings. And I think anyone who lives on the river understands that water's not coming up. So it's an ideal time, sooner the better. And just to the operations director, he may or may not know this, but a couple of the peak times of use of that are the spring launching season for the commercial operators and then the haul out in the fall. So it would be, if you have any room in your schedule to, any wiggle room, it would behoove us to be in touch with the commercial operators, because they would normally, in a normal year, start hauling Labor Day. However, because of low water, I'm informed that many people may be hauling boats sooner. So that sort of action or all of the refurbishment that ramp needs it would be nice to coordinate a little bit with the commercial uses. Also, I can't let us forget, and I know this is another big ask, but it says this is the first time I think that the plans have actually been put out publicly, to the best of my knowledge. I've seen them, I saw them years ago. I don't think much changed there, but it is important at that dock because of its proximity or its fitting in with private property on both sides. It is important that a very modest dock so that a person can launch a boat, tie it up, go park their vehicle and trailer and come back to their boat. That is something that is quite necessary there. Otherwise, it becomes a two-person minimum operation where someone has to drive the boat away, perhaps over to our lovely Rockport Park dock. But if a single fisherman or a single person is trying to deal with that, you need somewhere to tie your boat up. And it doesn't have to be much, but it needs to be something. So I see in that report, pardon me, not the report, but in the diagrams, the drawings, it shows a modest ramp for future consideration. And I just would like to bring it once again to our attention that would be best done. It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be high end. It just has to be something. Thank you very much. And I would hope that this council will approve the extra money and so on. I see it's for drainage. If you were down there, and I'm sure the director of ops could explain that in 10 seconds. It's just necessary. Thank you.
Councillor Brady.
Thank you, Worshipman. Through you to the director. Have a few questions. Potential start time of the project, if it gets underway immediately, or whether it's going to be middle of the summer. Can all the work be completed in the time frame for the end of the year? It probably can, depending on its start time, of course. Will the roadway need to be closed for crane or offloading of these cement girders and parts and pieces for this? And how is that going to impact businesses around that area? And will there be any after hours work if there's no willingness to actually shut down the road for a little bit to offload some of this stuff? Thank you.
Director.
Through you, Your Worship. I don't foresee the need to close the road. Maybe short periods of time. There would have to be a staging area for the material to be placed. And then obviously we'd have to get the material from the staging area down to the ramp. I've seen these built in the past, and a crane is not really required. An excavator will be sufficient for that. They have lifting mechanisms that they can utilize to pick the ramps up and put them in place, which makes it more functional, because you need an excavator to prepare the base for the mats and then to put the concrete, the different pieces of concrete in place. So I don't foresee any issues with that. The timeline, this would take somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks, say a month tops. And in speaking with, I think it was Keyhose that I'd had a conversation with about this one, they said that September is the peak time for lift out, similar to what Councillor Grail had said. So that is definitely going to be taken into consideration, but we do have a 2-month window that we can do all that work in. And then to respond to Councillor Grail's question or concern about the drainage as well. I was down there. The culvert was replaced somewhere between 7 and 10 years ago. It's a CSP, and we're building this boat launch to last 60 plus years. So that CSP will only last about another 15 or 20. So we're taking this opportunity to replace that run underneath the asphalt in the boat launch while we're there, rather than have to expose it later and try to tie it back in and put more cuts in the asphalt. So just trying to tie everything all in at once. I know that it's part of a grander plan for Rockport that Marnie had been working on before I got here. And we just want to make sure that that everything when we're done ties in together and works. It's functional.
Thank you. Councillor Fody. Oh, sorry. No, Deputy Mayor Lackey. I apologize. I was looking at the wrong person.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. It's actually so amazing that we're going to do something down there. It's been a lot of years coming, but I just wonder as well with Ivy Lee.
Director, go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship. Ivy Lee, I have met with a local contractor about that one. A preliminary design was undertaken previous to me coming on board here, and that engineering firm doesn't really exist anymore. None of the key players that did that original design exist. So I've had conversations with local contractors who feel that that sort of project is better suited for a design build. So we're currently researching tender documents for the design build purpose for that one. And our hope is to get that design underway this year and then come to budget for this fall to complete the project next year after we're beyond the fish window.
Go ahead.
Sorry, follow up to the director. We've had money in the budget for a few years now. Is it not there anymore?
There is money in the budget, but given the condition of the bottom side, the underside of the wharf, it's in pretty rough shape, and it hasn't been designed to handle the loading that's been on there. That's why we're seeing the conditions that we are currently. So we want to strengthen that substructure to be able to accommodate it as a contractor dock as well. I think that it's our only location where we can satisfy that use. So we need to accommodate that, as well as a boat launch and a dock system as well. So they're saying that we're going to have to increase the money, and the budget should be somewhere around the $800,000 to $900,000 mark.
Ouch.
Thank you for the information. Yes, ouch, but thank you for following up on Rockport.
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, I say ouch because I think the original price tag was between 4 and 5. So to almost double it is a lot. But on the same token, I would rather see it built to last and built to withstand the use that it's there for, because one of the complaints that we often receive from islanders is what have you done for me? And this is their roadway. So this is exactly their access. And if they need help getting anything done on their islands, they need contractors to be able to get there. Park boats are load and unload equipment, and this can be done here based on the design that the director's looking at. So we do thank you for your time and attention to this matter, because it has been ongoing for a while, both in Rockport and Ivy Lee, but ship shape and shaping up. Okay, so the motion still remains on the floor for refurbishment of the public boat ramp in Rockport up to $125,000 from the Capital Infrastructure Reserve Fund. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and it's carried. And we're gonna see that done before the end of this year. Now it's time. Step 4. Well, I think, I think the irony in all of that is that if it might have been done earlier, maybe that drainage issue wouldn't have been dealt with. So the silver lining is that we're getting a little more done, a little more bang for our buck at the same time. So hopefully that alleviate any further drainage issues that might pop up. Motion on the floor by Councillor Jameson and seconded by Councillor Fody that council approve the amendment to remove the holding symbol H from lands zoned rural residential special exception 13 RR-13. And that the rural residential special exception 14 RR-14 in the River Valley Estates subdivision attached to staff report number SR-079-21. Any questions or comments in regards to that? Councillor Garrell, and then Councillor, maybe go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I had the opportunity to travel down this road just as early as this weekend, and had gone right to the very end, and the development is coming along very well, and it is way down in there where the road has actually gone to, and there are houses being built. I think there's 2 currently underway, another one almost underway, and of course there's always been one there for a long time, and a lot of the services go down a fair little bit, maybe not all the way, but you can certainly travel down the road a long way opposed to even last year or even earlier this year. So it's going to be a very nice residence and a good opportunity for a lot of people who build there to actually explore the area, because it's very wooded and hilly and a very nice terrain. So I think they're doing a great job, and good to see it happening. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Garrell.
Sorry, my usual technical detail here. When I read the report, and it's just a slight clarification, I guess, when I looked at the mapping I see areas 12, 13, 14, and if I'm not mistaken, 15, and they all had an H, and yet we're only being asked to remove the holding from 13, 14, is it? At any rate, I just wondered if there was any reason we maintain the holding on the other areas, whether it's germane. Do we have any concerns? And I see that the reason for the holding was an archaeological completion, which would then, if I've got this right, would allow for engineering design preview, which would allow for resulting in lot compliance and so on. Yet the archaeological report has not been approved yet by the province. So could not all of those things proceed anyway? Is it absolutely necessary to remove the H, the holding? And again, why would we maintain the H on what appears to me other adjacent properties of the same property? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, through you. So the holding symbol on these particular zones, the 13 and 14, was for archaeology. But on the 12, and I believe it's 15, there's also other conditions related to environmental impact assessment for when those phases of the subdivision come forward. So it's not appropriate to remove the H from that zoning at this time. The reason I'm bringing this forward at this point in the absence, so when an archaeological report is required, the archaeologist does the report and then it's submitted to the ministry. The ministry can take some time in reviewing these reports and entering them into their register. At this point in time, we're going through the review of the final process. We're starting to draft a subdivision agreement. We're getting everything in line to be able to issue final subdivision approval. We can't issue final subdivision approval with the holding symbol still on the zoning. So in anticipation of everything coming together, I wanted to bring this forward to remove that holding symbol so that I'm not reliant on a council meeting schedule to remove this piece because it's really a housekeeping type of amendment.
That answers everything perfectly. Thank you so much for that clarity. Thank you.
Any further questions in regards to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed? And the motion is carried. Okay, so the mayor's update. I guess really maybe looking forward more than anything. Even last week, I was chairing committee of the whole at county council, and we had a number of things on the agenda that I could go through. I was thinking about this is that maybe I should bring a more of a synopsis in future for county and leave it on the agenda. And I wanted to ask the council if that would be of value, just to maybe bring some highlights. There's lots of housekeeping stuff, awarding of tenders and things like that that are housekeeping because they follow a very specific procedure. But if we're talking about, you know, Mapleview Lodge or the county road structure or anything to that effect that would affect all of us. Now, the interesting now that it twigs my memory about County Road 5. So the detour, when they were redoing County Road 5 tracks, went over County Road 27, and everybody was howling with laughter because they had said that County Road 27 was coming off the docket for repair, and County Road 27 has some pretty rough patches. And because they were rerouting traffic through Devil's Door Road onto Highway 20 or County Road 27, they were going to see potentially more deterioration just because of that 1 week of traffic. So, you know, I shouldn't say laugh, it's tongue in cheek, but it's like the planning part of it is always difficult. And I appreciate the frustration of the residents and even at county, but it's an ongoing process. And all I could say at county the other day was thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because it's the one thing that I know it plagued the previous council. I know that the council asked to have it repaired, and it's just finally getting done now. And I can't take credit for that other than I just continued to carry the torch and be a real pain in the butt when it came to budgeting sessions. because I wanted to make sure that it was involved in budgeting, which is another reason why I asked the Director of Operations to make a note to make sure that whatever the estimations are for our own crossings, that we have it in the budget, that it doesn't get forgotten about or misplaced, because it needs to be done, right? And with the last thing we need is another fire truck with a axle or something cracked or whatever, because those are very expensive machines. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. I know county council is probably what, 700-800 pages of agenda.
Depending on the day. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not, I would say that it's usually about 250 to 300, depending on the week.
If we could just be updated on what
Pertains to us.
pertains to us.
The challenge with that, though, I think there's things that go on at county that may not be specifically in our municipality that do pertain to us or the greater overall good. And one of the things that I'm grateful for with our Director of Operations is the planning part, that I've really learned a lot, even since Dave has, our Director Holiday has come to the municipality, is that future planning piece is paramount. And I know we have a new director at county. Rick Kester is the new Director of Operations. He's been there since, or to Public Works, he's been there since December. So he's been there 6 months now. And he's got a lot on his plate. There's no doubt about it. But one thing I will boast about here, it's a feather in our cap because we've chosen to support the staff on this, but we're miles ahead in asset management here, miles from county. The last county had an asset management plan done in 2018, which was perfectly good the day that it was presented. And then after that, if you don't persistently update that information and that data, you are working with 2018 data. And your decision making is supposed to be based on the most relevant data possible. So when our Director of Finance is sitting down and working with our citywide people and Public Sector Digest, who are putting together our asset management plan that is going to be integrated into the day-to-day life of every municipal employee here, it means that there will be, every day that they put more information in, it'll just get better and better and better and better. So when we go to budget, we're not missing such and such road because it's already logged in the system and it's always being updated. When they do road patrol and they find a pothole in section whatever, it's updated. Or when they go to open the bathrooms at Kendricks Park and there's a toilet that's been cracked over the winter and it's been replaced, all of those things get added in. And every time that data gets put in, it tightens the plan up. But right now, I don't see that plan at county. And that is what scares me, because they keep saying about how much money county has. But if they're going to be anything like this, they're going to have an infrastructure deficit no different than us. It'll just be on a different scale. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Your Worship, and through you, I think you misunderstood me on,
Oh.
just from the meetings, just the information that pertains to us,
Okay.
not, you know what I mean? It's,
Well, I guess the reason I brought up the asset management thing, because it isn't specific to our municipality per se, but it's specific to the tax rate that is applied to all of our taxpayers and our ratepayers. Because when we get through our asset management plan, we're going to have to take a hard look of how we prioritize these things, and no different will happen at county, except they've got a lot more than we do to deal with. So, did you put your hand up? Sorry, go ahead.
I did, if I may. I think a complete overhaul of the municipal act would assist this challenge at the county. Is that possible? And if it's not possible, I think the issue of Your Worship trying to communicate to us with you already carrying an incredible workload goes back to something I raised, maybe not formally, that it's almost like we need a committee within this council to monitor what goes on at the county so we can assist our own staff and our mayor in identifying, because it puts an awful load on one individual. All the mayors all have to keep us out of trouble and keep staff going. And so I just, I try to look at it as an organizational challenge on communications. And at what point do we start something that begins to break down because of just the sheer volume of stuff that comes at you on a monthly basis? What do we need to put in place here, if we can, to try to help monitor what's going on? That's my question.
And that I don't really have an answer for, but I think the suggestion is nice if there are people on council that want to help monitor what goes on at county, because Deputy Mayor makes a good point. Like our council packages compared to county a lot of the time are thin comparatively, which is fine because I'd rather it be more concise than onerous. But I also sit on the Mapleview Lodge Committee on top of that. And the Turner and Townsend report that we were presented at last week's meeting was, I forget how many pages, but that's a very specific report about the new build at Mapleview Lodge and how we're starting to see ballooning costs, and we don't have a shovel in the ground. And that's not specific to the build, but the market in general. But it's one other piece that we're required as mayors to sit on those councils, or on those committees, I should say, to keep an eye on it. And it's been a huge learning experience for me. But the great news is that we cut our teeth here on a smaller budget, so to speak, and then we get into the bigger budget. But the challenge was when we're going, hate to use asset management plan as a whipping person here at the post, but their auditor came to report to county last week. And the auditor basically said, because one of the mayors said, what can we do as council members to help move this asset management plan along? It seems that there's a void here. And the answer, I'll be quite honest, was pretty vague from the auditor. He basically said, well, it would be pretty hard for council to see these numbers. Sometimes it can be really overwhelming, and they're big numbers and it's a lot to take in. And he was, I don't want to say he was blasé about it, but it was almost like, well, you have to bite it off in chunks, I guess. I didn't really follow his thought process, but what I do know for certain is we can't stick our heads in the sand. Like you can't tell me that's $100 million budget at county on an annual basis, and they don't have an infrastructure deficit like every other municipality. And when you're talking about roads, like if you drive County Road 2 on the other side of Gananoque to Kingston, there's potholes there that you could lose a truck in. And County Road 2 is not slated for repairs that I'm aware of anytime soon. I've brought it up a couple of times at the table. And then there's other ancillary things that I continually get questions about. But, and I hate to pick on the operations department at county, but it's easiest because most people drive the roads. But I'm happy to bring back whatever council wants me to bring, but also the public. I'm receiving very good feedback from, I'm doing videos after these council meetings and putting them on social media. And the response has been wonderful because people are like, yeah, I don't want to watch a council meeting, but I can watch you for 15 minutes. Just give us a synopsis. So that's very positive because it still means that people are engaged and people are listening to what it is that we're doing here and the decisions that we're making. So if any of the staff members ask you to do these videos for any specific reason, for any of these, get the information out, I would highly encourage you to do that if you're comfortable, because people will listen rather than read. And unless you're Mark Jameson and he just lives to read, he just hunkers down in his new little office place. And is that the basement that she's put you down in?
The bunker.
The bunker.
That's Gord's
That's
in
right.
the bunker. I'm upstairs.
And reads or attends Ontario Woodlot things. So we're very grateful that he takes the time to do these things. And while we've been on in this council meeting, the director of operations has sent out some gypsy moth information, and we'll make sure that it gets distributed to all of council. But I still will go to county with that request. I'm, as far as finalize the mayor's update. I have a meeting. There's the International Joint Commission meeting tomorrow night. It's a webinar that I've registered for. I believe Councillor Oki has done the same. So hopefully we'll get some answers. There's some very upset people that can't put boats in or can't or are finding out the actual devastation of their docks because this is the first time that they've been able to see them in a few years. But the higher highs and the lower lows, that's the moniker that they've gone with, and they weren't kidding. So I'm not quite sure what to expect from this particular meeting, other than being informed of the Navy engineers and the IGC who they work with the control board, the river control board, and how that might look over the next couple of years and what their projections are. But my hope is that they try to find that equal ground, because there's lots of water to come through the Great Lakes system through here, but it's how and when, because it's only coming in centimeter by centimeter at this point, and we're supposed to hit a high right now. We should have been at our high in June, and we're not. We're nowhere near what I would think would be a regular high, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what the Navy engineers have to say on the call tomorrow night. I'd also like to recognize that this evening, before we started council, that we had 3 award presentations. Now that we're able to socially distant gather once again, we recognized Wendy Merkley, the recipient of the Bill Thake Award, and thanked her for her contribution to this community. Wendy is a business owner. She is a champion of economic development, but also has sat on our council here, has been a champion for the Friends of Rockport Customs Dock. She's a tireless worker in her community and has been for years, traveled around the world in her job, and then came back to the sleepy little town of Rockport and has never looked back. And she continues to bring that energy to the community, and we thank her for that. Also, Donna Dempsey has been awarded Senior of the Year through a provincial process. And Donna is another one of our tireless volunteers through LAFRA and the Lansdowne Agricultural Society. Donna is one of those people that is able to get other people. I don't know if she's got an ear pinching mechanism that she uses or what have you, but she is able to get lots of people to help out with these projects. And people like her are worth their weight in gold, because not only is she willing to get her hands dirty, roll her sleeves up, but she's willing to bring other people along, which means a lot to our community. And lastly, we were able to give a commemorative plaque to our former fire chief, Chief Lawson. We got to see him for the first time in a while, which was great to see his face and his lovely wife. And they're enjoying retirement and packing up the camper trailer. It sounds like they've got some adventures planned for this summer. So it's great to see them. It's unfortunate that we weren't able to see any of these people along with their families and their other loved ones that would like to be here to watch the presentations, but we are very grateful that we were able to finally present these things to these very deserving individuals. So thank you for that. And other than that, announcements from any councillors. Councillor Oki, and then I'll recognize the CAO, and then Councillor Maybe. Go ahead, Councillor Oki.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I'd like to give a shout out to the Lyndhurst Rejuvenation Committee. Martha Harvey has rallied the troops. They recognize that the community signboard was a little dilapidated, and they've taken the initiative to repair it or refurbish it. And local painter Rick Day has volunteered to do the work, and LRC will provide him the means to do that. Community engagement, well done to everybody.
Yes, and I think that's another bonus of COVID. I think people have time to look around and see what needs to be done. So another silver lining. Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. On Canada Day, I will be doing a virtual event in Gananoque as a town crier, as most of you know. So tune into that. That's going to be set up. There's going to be maybe a few people in the park at this moment. It looks like we can have some people in the park. So looking forward to seeing how that is this year. The other thing I did want to say is to operations director and everybody involved in the garage and all the work that they've been doing out on the roads, whether it be grading, calcium, mowing, whatever. It's been a tremendous opportunity to see the difference. And it's been great to see the response from some of the residents that have also called me. So thank you for the great work that the team is doing. And I know I'm saying the operations, but I know the team throughout this whole office has been doing tremendous work over the last little while. So thank you to one and all for everything that you are doing and are continuing to do to make this a better community for us all. Thank you.
Councillor Jameson.
Just like to underline what Councillor maybe has just said. Absolutely tremendous start. Two points. One, I not to belabor the point, but this business with the county really is sticking in my craw for a long time. So I'd be willing to sit with a couple of other people to try to figure out what the salient points would be we would need to draw and bring, because there's a lot of money tied up and we get less than 50 cents, keep less than 50 cents of the tax dollars we collect. Big chunk goes to the county and we really need to be on top of that. But I just wanted to say two things. One, as we're opening up, I hope we all remember that during this period and with the COVID, that our local businesses really stepped up and worked very hard for us. And as some of these big box extravaganzas start to open up in Kingston and I guess, well, Gananoque is, we like Gananoque, it's close to Ebenezer, that we remember that our local stores have done a heck of a job. So let's not forget them when we open up. I really worry about that, quite frankly, that they were there for us when we needed them. Let's be there for them now. The other thing I wanted to point out, may not come as a surprise to any of you, but the Sealy's Bay Fire Hall is not closing. I know. But some of the posts that have gone out from one or two of the usual suspects suggests that we are somehow going to do something nefarious with respect to the Sealy's Bay Fire Hall. And I know we all know it's there and it's running. The problem with this is that it gets people concerned. So I'm hearing from them, but we're all hearing from them. But also, and I'm sure Councillor Oki is too, but also it's disrespectful because we have a volunteer leadership in our fire service, volunteer people that work very hard to keep us safe. And this kind of undermining of their effort, to me, that's what's going on here. So I would hope that we could all go back and make it clear to everyone that Sealy's Bay Fire Hall is there. The long term under our asset management program, there may be changes, that's fine. But in the meantime, it's there, it's functioning, and the people there are working to keep us safe. So thank you. Enough said.
I think that's probably the most eloquent way to put that. And I appreciate the fact that you brought up a point that there's lots of posts that people might see on social media. And whether they're true or not is up to you to find out for certain. And that people are posting things purposefully often to get a rise, to get people engaged, true or untrue. And the sad part is that some people believe everything they read. And even when we used to be in newsprint, they used to say, believe 50% of what you read, because it's someone's perspective on it. I'm not saying that it's not 100% true or there isn't an element of truth to it, but the point about Sealy's Bay Fire Hall is very well made. There has been no decision here. There has been no trajectory set here one way or the other. There has been recommendations in long-term range planning that we will have to deal with over the long term, but we as council are not doing anything behind anyone's backs. And I will stand here and take that any day. If anybody has a problem with that, they're welcome to call me. My phone number is published. Deputy Mayor Lackey.
Thank you, Worship, and through you, I'm sure we could ask our prior fire chief and probably our new chief. That building was redone not that many years ago to accommodate the bigger trucks. we had to replace the elevator. There was a lot of work done to bring it up to compliance. So, whether or not it's still in compliance, I don't know. But it's there and they've done a lot of work to it.
Well, I think the bottom line is that our fire service is functioning well. Our operations department is functioning well. Our planning department is running off their bloody feet with building permits and zoning applications and everything else. And then you have the community and business services that are working diligently to be engaged with our community members as well as our businesses. And to underscore what Councillor Jameson said, it is important. It's absolutely imperative that every single person in this community does everything they can to spend their money locally and try to reduce trips to the larger centers if we can get things. But I think the remarkable part of all of this COVID is, as difficult as it's been on many people and many businesses, there is new businesses and new growth that's happening. If you look at Sealy's Bay, they have a hardware store that's coming back online. There's new owners to where the Nest was. Krona's, sorry, I would never.
Cones and cravings.
Bones and Cravings with K. Sorry, thank you very much. But and then we have the Tipsy Goat that's coming online here, and there's refurbishment of buildings that are happening, both residential and commercial. There's growth, there's things happening here. And I'm certainly not undermining the stress and the worry that business owners have had throughout all of this. But, I'm very proud to say that people here have been supportive up all the way through the pandemic. It may or may not be enough for some businesses, but in some of the businesses' cases, they've found a new way to do business as well. And hopefully that will be enough to sustain them, but it will be up to us as a community to support them going forward. So I'll go to the CAO and then we'll go to the bylaws.
That's the one that's on. I think the podium mic's on. If you just want to project, it is picking you up.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship. And through you to council, I'd just like to take a moment and recognize that many of our staff, in addition to their regular duties, also volunteer their time through other organizations. And I just wanted to advise council of some recent appointments involving some of the senior staff. Director Goodman will continue to serve as co-chair of the Rural Recreational Association for the Leeds, Grenville, and Lanark region. She started that role in 2020 and will continue on through 2021. She also continues to lend her support to various programs at Algonquin College, St. Lawrence College, and Durham College, whether it's guest lecturing or mentoring students or participating in co-op programs. Acting Chief Pryor has just been appointed Vice President of the Chief Fire Officers Association of Leeds and Grenville. This is an association that provides a forum for the fire services across the county to discuss issues and coordinate actions. Director Holiday has been appointed to the Product Management Committee of the Road Authority, and it's a committee that facilitates the evaluation and management of infrastructure products and solutions, and they make recommendations to MTO. Director Holiday also has been appointed as chair of the Civil Engineering Technology Program Advisory Committee at St. Lawrence College. This is a committee that reviews industry best practices and needs, and they try to figure out how to incorporate them into the program that the kids are in. So very worthwhile. Last but not least, I'd like to advise that Director Tyndall has been appointed to the Legislative and Policy Advisory Committee of the Association of Municipal Managers, Treasurers, Clerks, and Clerks of Ontario. AMTO, as you all know, is an important voice for municipalities throughout the province, and the Legislative and Policy Committee plays a key role in setting AMTCO's position on key provincial legislation and regulations. So that's quite a coup for Director Tyndall. And the experience that the senior staff gained in these various organizations they bring it right back to our township. And so we as a whole benefit from their exposure out there. And it also gets the township exposed outside in the bigger world. So it's quite a good thing. And they're making me look bad because I don't do any of this stuff and have to pick up my socks and try to compete with them. Anyway,
Thank you very much. I think that the underlying message that the CAO has just brought forward is the fact of how professional our staff are here, and that they are part and parcel of the groups that make up the advisory councils and the other associations that they all go to for more information and more support. So we're lucky to have the senior management team that we have, along with the other individuals that support us throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the years. And I really believe that we are at a much higher level every day. And the professionalism is growing, and I appreciate the effort, and I know council does as well, as they keep seeing, but we'll just keep climbing the hill. So anyways, with that, I'll move forward with the bylaws. Okay. Moved by Councillor Oki, seconded by Councillor Burrell, that 3 readings and final passage be granted to bylaws 21-032, 21-033, 21-034, 21-035, 21-036, 21-037, and 3 readings and final passage be granted to bylaw number 21-038, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands at its committee of the whole meeting June 7th and council meeting on June 14th. Madam Clerk, you have a comment to make?
Yeah, on 21-036, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, there was supposed to be a property tax rate scheduled attached to that, but instead I've forwarded it to council via email. So that was an oversight on my part. Apologies for any inconvenience, but it will be attached to the minutes for public review as well.
So this is the tax rate that we've already discussed through the tax levy that's already been.
It is,
approved.
yeah.
Correct. So this is just the actual consolidation of those tax rates to be published. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Groh.
Just looking at the tax ratios, the couple that I was familiar with, it looks like they haven't changed the ratios. And I just wonder if I could confirm that with the treasurer, that the county didn't alter any of those ratios over the last year.
Go ahead.
Through your worship. No, I don't believe there were any changes made to any of the ratios this year.
Thank you for that. And I would just like to say I did a quick calculation. It looks like we're holding on to 44% of our tax collection, 36% looks like it's going to county, and 19% looks like it's going to education. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to also add context to Mayor Gurrell's, or Mayor Gurrell, there you go. You just got promoted. Here, just a second. Not in your life. Well, it's up to you. We were talking about MPAC assessment, and I can't remember, did I say anything about this last week? I don't think I did. We were talking about MPAC assessment and how the tax rates have been, tax revenue, sorry, not tax rate. Tax revenue has been fairly flat, and that will be very dependent on the growth, because MPAC is not doing anything for a phase in until 2023. So and that's something that's important to underline right now, because when we go into budgeting for the fall, we're not going to see any growth in our tax levy. We're going to be flat again, other than what reassessments have been done due to building permits and those sorts of things. So every building permit that comes through here, a zoning application or any augmentation to a property, could result in an increase in tax dollars. But there's a process. It takes time. It's not retroactive, or there's a formula for that. But I requested at county that there be a presentation from MPAC on how they're going to deal with the bottleneck. And the bottleneck that I'm talking about is they're off the cuff believing that this real estate bubble is just that, a bubble, and it's going to burst. The thing is, our property values in this particular part of Eastern Ontario have been depressed for 20 years. So we're just seeing the growth that other municipalities have seen over a longer period of time, just in a shorter period of time here. And my personal opinion is that we may not see the crazy astronomical offers that we're seeing right now just because of the lack of supply. But demand is still there. People want to get out of the city. They want to come to places where they have more space and they can sell their house in the city and come here and buy something cash, which is putting additional pressure on the locals who own homes and who want to stay here. But the bottleneck is this. You have a house that was assessed at $283,000 this year, selling for $685. One of my clients. And that is a huge difference. Whereas a year, 2 years ago, it might have sold for 480, 500, but because of the demand in the market. So nobody's going to be able to afford a massive tax increase, but yet you put it into context for the rest of the budgeting cycle. We need more dollars because the cost of goods have gone up exponentially. So it's a very vicious circle, and there's only one taxpayer. And I don't know what the answer is, but how they're going to handle this on the impact side of things to phase it in so that it's not painful for the general taxpayer. That's what we're looking for. And so that's what I requested at county, is to have a presentation rather than them come to every specific municipality. It's coming to county. So when that happens, when that delegation happens, I will be sure to let everybody know that it's happening so that you can watch with interest and also to educate yourself on how you might view the next budgeting cycle here in the municipality. Well, we could always reduce, absolutely we could, but it's also a matter of figuring out what we're going to reduce in services at the same time. Oh, I see. I see your point. See, go ahead.
Your point, excuse me, Mayor, but your point was that the assessment could go through the roof.
But then we can reduce the, yes,
Right?
absolutely.
So the CVA would be very, very, very high, but the portion of that we would require, we could deal with that.
Yeah, and that's another way to skin the cat, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. But these are why we need to have these discussions now, not in 2023. We need to have these discussions with MPAC now so that we can voice our concerns and what we're facing here at municipalities, because they're independent from the government. MPAC is a crown corporation. It's not a division of the provincial government. But we rely on their information to set our budgeting and our levies. So, excuse me. So it's just information that's important, I think, for every counselor to know going forward over the next budgeting cycle. And with that, I will shut up so we can get out of here. I apologize. Is there any discussion on the motion and the bylaws that are at hand? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and we're carried. And we'll put another motion on the floor just to tie a ribbon around it all, and it's non-debatable. Moved by Councillor Oakey, seconded by Councillor Grell, that the council meeting adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we are carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies that are watching. Thank you, lady in the council chamber, and we'll see you next month.